Hello and welcome to another review of Love is Blind. Today we will be reviewing episodes 11 and 12. 12 is the finale and the reunion is going to be in 2 more days.
I wanna get to your clothes, gotta get it right now. I wanna push all the limits with you right now. So watch your feelings, the city's screaming when
I'm your host, Lene Willis, and this is my guest, Terrence Court. Thank you and welcome for joining me in this last review. I took notes because this session, baby. All right, so episodes 11 and 12 are filled with buku questions. What I want to do is do this a little bit differently by posing some questions to you and getting you to answer them and give me your feedback. Questions are going to be along the lines of, was AD split appropriate? Is Amy and Johnny's marriage going to stand the test of time? Is Laura going to realize that she was a bully in her relationship with Jeremy, despite the fact that he did a lot of wrong things in the relationship? Are Jimmy and Jessica together? Did Jeremy and Sarah Ann find their way back together? These will be answered in today's session. So let's just get to it. First question. What's your overall view on episodes 11 and 12?
I was surprised. A lot of surprises, which I did not expect.
Really?
Yes, a lot of surprises. I think in general, people made reasonable choices in general. The choices that were made on the last two episodes were reasonable. It's my overall feeling. There are a few exceptions.
Okay. All
And
right.
yours?
Let's get into it a little bit deeper. So the episode 11, I believe it started out and Jimmy was pretty much having a dialogue with Chelsea about what he was going to say at the altar, and she was giving her response as well. How do you feel about Jimmy essentially telling her, I'm not showing up at the altar and here's why?
Jimmy was basically leveraging her as an excuse. Like, he really set everything up to have her be like, I don't know, I'm not sure, so he wouldn't have to, and she didn't do it, so he had to. I feel like that's kind of a punk move. Also, why did he choose to have this conversation after a date? It feels like he could have done this before the date and not, like she said, had her on this high and then drag her all the way down to I'm good.
That was
it was a very weird
on his part, emotional perspective.
I mean, I've always said he wasn't there. I think he just used an excuse to make himself feel like he wasn't being the bad guy, right? To go chase after Jessica.
And I said from the very beginning, he didn't want her.
No.
The moment that he saw her, he was so disappointed. But guess what? This is all her fault. Because she set up, she said that she made all this anticipation around her looks. And had she not injected her physical appearance into their conversation and in their exchanges, he would have never had a letdown. He probably would have been able to accept her a bit more. But in some ways, she manipulated him from the pods to secure a proposal from him. Because for her, it was a competition. It made her feel good to have this choice between Jimmy and Trevor. And I think maybe from the first episode, I thought that maybe Jimmy could have gone either way with either woman. But as the dates progressed and as the episodes progressed, immediately I knew that Jessica would have been a better fit. And Chelsea was too emotional for him, what he needed, and they would never work. And so said, so done.
Yeah. It's also interesting to note that thinking back, she never brought up, or at least they didn't record her discussing her appearance with Trevor. They discussed his appearance, so they had a conversation. But there was no, there was none of that from her Whereas I believe that she did do that with Jimmy when she was aware of Jessica and Jessica's interests. So I think you're right. I think you're right.
So, how do you feel about the fact that Jimmy kept communicating pretty consistently that he still loves her and she is his person, but he kind of go all the way? Do you feel like he's saying all of that just to save face? Do you feel like he is trying to make sure he doesn't look bad on TV? Like, what do you think all of that was about? Do you feel like he was genuinely confused or genuinely in love with her?
I don't believe he was. I don't believe he was. I think he's saving face. And I think hopefully we'll see that in the last episode. Because if he doesn't show it now, he's going to show it later. But I don't think he's in love with her. I think he can make her work, but he feels like it feels like a compromise, right? Like there's nothing obviously wrong with her, but she's not. That's not the relationship he sees himself.
Mm-hmm. And to be honest, after seeing the exchange with him and Jessica, where he said to her, "You're still my number one," why would you want to be married to someone who sees another woman as their number one? What's the point? You know what I'm saying? And I think had he communicated that to Chelsea, Chelsea may have been able to make an informed decision about her relationship with Jimmy, you know, a couple episodes earlier, and then that would have been a wrap, and she probably would have gone after Trevor at the cookout. So, you know. All right. So moving forward from Chelsea and Jimmy, how do you feel about Amy and Johnny tying the knot?
Amy and Johnny, I'm happy for them. I mean, they have some unresolved things, minor unresolved things, but I think all in all, their relationship has kind of followed a healthy trajectory. Mm-hmm. They've had some issues, they've had some arguments, and they've been able to negotiate those. They communicate well. They've introduced each other to each other's families and gotten along, families and friends. It feels good, and Johnny has never kind of strayed from this is who and what I want. Like, everybody's cool, but like I want, and so I am happy for them, and I think Amy feels loved and appreciated. You know, and there's work to do, but there's always work to do in relationships.
Every relationship, every marriage, shoot, I'm still working on my relationship with my husband. He gets on my nerves every day, as you know, because I tell you about it. But anyway, yes, I agree with that. I feel like they did their due diligence, and that's the importance of like dating and making sure that you ask those tough questions. And if you both are on the same timeline when it comes to commitment, then you can really flesh out and put in all the groundwork in asking the questions you need to ask to ensure that you all are actually a good fit. So, cool. I want to focus a little bit now on Laura and Jeremy. They didn't get to a point where they even went to the dress fitting or any of that stuff. They didn't show up, which I was surprised to see. But I was not surprised to see, but in previous seasons of Love is Blind, even though couples might break up, they might still show the couples in some kind of space, individuals in some kind of space. And in this case, you saw it with Brittany and Kenneth. As soon as they made a choice to end their relationship, we didn't see them again. They were not introduced again at any level. And I think Love is Blind is trying to set the tone and the standard to indicate like, hey, if y'all are not going to be in this, we're not going to be showcasing you in this experiment just to have you on national TV, just to have your national TV if you're not going through it. This show is not just for free advertisement of your individual self. Like, it's either you're going to be a part of the experiment, and if you decide to be out, then you're out. You're not going to be seen anymore. Yeah. And kudos to them for making that decision, because I feel like the people were just coming on just to be a part of the show as opposed to actually seeking marriage. So with that said, I noticed that they didn't show Laura and Jeremy anymore. What are your thoughts or your feedback about some things that they should have done, things that they could have done differently that would have probably saved their relationship?
That's an interesting question. I think I don't want to kind of blame one side because it does take two parties, you know, for all interactions. But I do think Laura spent a lot of time tearing down the relationship inadvertently. and kind of doomed it before before it really had a chance. I know that Jeremy could have not gone out with with Sarah Ann, but I feel like it was a response to kind of being torn down over and over and over again. Right? He was looking for validation, looking for a way to build himself up. And it is possible that you can drive someone into the arms of someone else. Drive your person into the arms of someone else. So it really does feel like they possibly had a chance if Laura had been able to accept him for who he was.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Now I'm going to switch gears and ask you about Adie and Clay, and back to her slit. I know you're a dude, so you're probably going to have different thoughts. How did you feel about her split when you saw it?
I thought her slit was fine. I thought the dress looked great on her. I thought she was fine.
So, I mean, I know we're going to have a difference of opinion, because I know you love a thigh. So it's fine. I get it. You're a guy. I get it. I feel like it spoke to me like Adie was going to a prom, or she was going to a black tie event, or she was going to a black and white party, or she was going to a New Year's resolution party. It said she was going everywhere else but to where she actually went to with the doggone dress. I felt like the split was inappropriate, because as she walks, you can see the inner part of the other side of the top thigh, which is close to her panties. And to me, seeing someone's underwear is too much, especially at their wedding. It just reeked of being inappropriate. That's my point. And I felt like she wore that because she wanted to leave with her physical body and not all the other emotional aspects of her relationship with Clay. It almost as though she wanted to remind him, like, hey, just so you know, I just want you to know that I'm still sexy. I want you to be distracted by it and to be reminded of it so that you can make a decision based on my appearance. And I think she was fearful of him saying no from the very beginning, to be honest. And even when he did say no, I'm going to ask you about that too. But when he did say no, her first response was, I am never enough. Mm-hmm. And to me, it seems so contradictory with who I thought she was when I first met her. If you are confident in yourself, you would never get to a point where you feel I am never enough. You see what I'm saying? Like, you could say, oh man, I wasn't enough for this person, which is different than I am never enough for anybody, period, ever in the world and in life. And I was just like, who is this Adie? Who is this new Adie? Like, I was kind of shocked. I know people have been saying that Adie has, like, she kind of was over-sexualized. And to be honest, I didn't even see her as such until later on in the episodes, when more and more of Clay's doubt was entered into their conversation and in their relationship, the more she became sexy. I don't know. It was a very strong negative correlation. That's my statistics background speaking. As his confirmation of being in the relationship decreased, the more she amped up her sexuality. And I don't know why she turned to that as opposed to relying on a lot of the other skills. Remember, I was saying, oh, Adie has this skill. She can draw people into conversation with her. Da 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 da. All these skills that she has, it's almost like they just went out the door. And I was just so confused by this new Adie. So what are your thoughts on that? And then also talk to me about some of the things that Clay said in response to why he made the choice to not get married to her.
There's never been a question for me about the role that Adie's body, because I don't even want to say her physical appearance, right? Men can group women into various groups, right? Adie falls firmly into, and this isn't a preference thing or a description of my opinion, but from the way that she interacted with people on the show, she is used to being grouped into the AD, the body, right? That's what people focus on about her. And whether she likes it or not, it is a theme, a reoccurring theme in her life. And you get this with, various women, but I think because a lot of men are kind of blinded by their sexuality, for women who have an ideal of sexual appearance, their bodies are what the current standard for sexy is, it can be very problematic in how men interact with them. And this is different from women who are pretty, right? You can be pretty, but that doesn't mean everybody's just trying to sleep with you, right? They like you and they may pay more attention to your personality, but if you're sexy, everybody's just trying to sleep with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like her visceral response to Clay wanting to know what she looked like was a response to a history of having to deal with that, right? And I think she thought that she had gotten past that, right? And in a sense, she had. But like you said, when she was rejected, she fell back into why am I never enough, which is not a reflection of herself, but more a reflection of what people were looking for from her, right? People were looking for sex. And maybe if that turned into a relationship or they got a relationship, maybe that would work, right? I think that that's not necessarily the case with Clay, but he made bad choices, which makes it easy for her to group him in that same group, right?
What bad choices do you feel like Clay made in their relationship, their engagement?
Clay is obsessed with feeling 100%, not having doubts, as if the lack of a doubt implies the permanence of a relationship, right? He pointed out many times he was worried about his ability to live up to not her expectations, which is how she took it, but to his expectations for what someone who's with her deserves, right? What she deserves, right? She deserves a man who's going to treat her a certain way. And he felt like, hey, historically, I haven't been this. I may not be able to live up to those expectations. And I would say that feeling that the person you're with deserves better than your current self is a good thing, right? They drive you to be better or to want to be better. And not being comfortable with your current state of being a crap guy is a good step for you to want to be in. But he took it as a kind of negative reflection on his ability to meet her needs. And I don't think it was. I also don't think that she was armed with the tools to explain that to him. Because again, she's kind of coming out of being hurt from people not being able to express or respect her as a person.
Agreed. Okay. I could get behind that thought. I know when I made this comment a few reviews back, I felt like you looked at me kind of shadily because I was like, I don't think he's that into her. I don't think he is attracted to her. Remember I said that? And I stand by it. I think that he feels like she has a really good body. And I feel like there are some good quality things that he identified in her. But I don't think that the things that he'd identified in her, plus the physicality that she presented, was enough for him to make that choice. I would also say, because those things weren't enough, I think that's one of the reasons why he kept feeling like I could revert back to old habits and I'm so fearful about these old habits and da. I think that's why those things kind of kept feeding into their relationship and their engagement. And one of the notes that I made was in regards to, he said he looked himself in the mirror and he asked himself 2 questions. Am I ready for marriage? And am I in deep love? He said his response to both of those were no. He was not in deep love with her. I think that he liked her. I think that he enjoyed her company. I think that he enjoyed the physical, because they were intimate. They were having sex in their relationship. I think he enjoyed it, but I think he knew that it would not be enough for him. I think that, plus all the issues that he'd identified in himself that he still needed to fix, he was like, it's probably all me. He never actually verbalized that I don't think you would be enough for me. But I think essentially, her not being enough is what made him truly believe that he would end up reverting back to old ways because she wasn't total package. And I do agree with you where he has this kind of a mindset where it's 100% or 0%. And is gonna do him a disservice in all of his relationships. And maybe the reason why it's been that way in his previous history. He's never been able to be satisfied. He's never been able to find something. Who knows if there's ever a woman that Clay would ever be able to be married to and be completely satisfied in that relationship. And I think for men who are like that, now there's a difference between liking women to the point of where you like to look at different women, or you think women are sexy and so you enjoy a sexy woman when she walks by, or a sexy woman on IG. That's one thing. But there's another thing where you have to interact and engage, and you have to reach out and get feedback from that woman. It says a lot about who you are as an individual if you must have that. And I think AD wasn't enough for him, especially in that timeline. I think that he would want to be in a relationship with her and try to see if things can go, but she doesn't want to be a part of his healing process. And I don't blame her. I don't want to be in a Build-A-Bear situation where you're waiting to see if that's time spent. And AD is not that young. I don't remember exactly how old she is, but I don't recall her being in her early 20s. No, I think she's in her late 20s or maybe early 30s.
Yeah.
So she doesn't really have that kind of time to play around, especially when you start thinking about children and things of that nature. It makes it challenging. And honestly, even though you might be young, you may have difficulty with getting pregnant anyway. So you need as much time as possible to try to attempt pregnancy, in a natural standpoint, and then to also rid your body of any of the drugs that you may be taking that could impact pregnancy and things of that nature. There's so many things that people have to consider when they're going into a relationship. And I don't know. And I feel bad for AD because I want to believe that she's not this ratchet person because she didn't present her, at least I didn't see that. I feel like you probably saw a little bit more of that from the very beginning. For me, I was like, hey, dude, what? Girl, what? Why is that split? Okay. I was legitimately shocked and bewildered. I don't know if I described her initially as classy, but I felt like she was a very solid person. I felt like I could connect with her. And I feel like she has appropriate boundaries when it comes to interacting with other people for the most part. There were some sticky situations I felt like, especially with her engagement with some of the other men, that she could have probably taken a step back and she didn't. But I don't think that she was overly flirtatious with anyone or anything like that. Where I was like, what in the ratchet is going on? I know people have been saying that, but I don't recall seeing that or viewing that. That hasn't been my perspective. But I mean, I don't know. I feel sorry for the both of them because I feel like they couldn't make a good match, and Clay just couldn't get past himself. And I mean, he's fine, but he's not that gonna find to be, going through everybody's hits and misses and determining whether someone is a good fit or not. I felt like she was a good fit for him, but I immediately knew that he wasn't attracted to her. I saw it. I saw it from the very beginning. I said it. And if I find that clip, I'm gonna insert it right here with my different clothes and my different hairdo saying, I don't think he's really feeling her like that. But anyway, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah. You said a lot. So I guess the first thing I want to kind of comment on is evaluations of kind of personality and how that may appear as making someone worthy for marriage or not. So you said, I didn't see her as being ratchet or whatever, or flirtatious. I honestly don't know that any of those things matter in the way that people think they might. There's a lot of virtue signaling, a lot of people who want to appeal to conservative kind of ideals that we've, as a culture, I think Americans are Protestant conservative. And there's a lot of things that we appeal to as being, an acceptable way to present yourself or behave. Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, I think that AD may have had more of a pull on Clay if she was more flirty, if he wasn't 100% confident in her desire to be with him and just him, right? So Clay describes himself as kind of a player. He's, out there getting girls. And so the contrast in going from, I'm a player, I'm out here doing what I want to do. Essentially, players are people who pursue variety, right? To put him in a situation where he's committing to the lack of variety, it's not, he's married, it's not, I'm committing to you and you are enough. You can never be enough if what he's looking for is variety.
Agreed.
Right?
Yes.
And I think part of it is something that most men are going to deal with. When you make a commitment to be in a monogamous relationship, in a semi-permanent way, right? In a way that's hard to reverse, as in a marriage, you are faced with the fact that whether you were chasing other women or not, now you are officially a bad person if you're out in the streets hitting on people, right? You said in a public way that you are going to be committed to this person, and you've expressed commitment to a certain cultural ideal of what monogamy looks like. And unless you and your spouse have discussed what your freedoms are and aren't, then they are not hitting on other women out in the street. And that's something that, whether you're going to sleep with them or not, is a choice that you don't like taken from you. It's stupid. It's just a fact of life. So I do think that if he had to chase her, maybe he would have felt more strongly about it. It's not about her being pretty or attractive, right? But he didn't really have to put in any effort besides, like, okay, I'm going to try to be not a crap person, right? But he didn't have to chase her. She was there. She was interested and ready for him. And for players, I don't know that helps, right? So I think it was a mismatch from the beginning in her ability to hold his interest. You think it may be because she wasn't necessarily physically attractive enough, but guys treat beautiful women crap all the time. It might be part of it, but guys treat beautiful women like crap all the time.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, look at Beyonce. But I feel like men are gonna do whatever they feel like doing, and honestly, women cheat just as much. We just don't get caught.
Yeah.
Anyway,
which is true.
Generally, we don't get caught. But I mean, I agree with what it is that you're saying. I guess my thing too, though, is that I'm a woman, and I want to make it clear that women can have just as much as men the challenge of commitment, right? Committing to their partner. I know when I was thinking about entering into a relationship with my now husband, I had to really think about it because I didn't necessarily want to be tied down in that sense. I wanted to be able, because even when I was dating him initially, I was dating multiple people. And he knew about it. They knew, they weren't the only person. But then when you make a decision to narrow it down to one, it's a lot. And it's not just, who doesn't like variety? You only go and get ice cream that's just vanilla or only chocolate? No, I want to try the peanut butter. When I go in the cold store, I'm like, let me get a sample of this. Let me get a sample of that. By the time I'm done, I buy something else that I haven't even sampled. So like I feel like people like variety, regardless of gender. I'll say that number one. Number two, I do agree that maybe if there had been more of a chase, and as you were saying that, I started thinking about the fact that Clay was really upset that 80 had liked Matt, and he felt like he wasn't number one. He cried,
Yeah.
right? But I think also part of what like made him a bit flustered was the fact that he and Matt were nothing alike. And so he was just overly concerned, like if she is going between me and him, that am I enough? I think he also struggled with wondering if he was enough at some point as well. He kept reiterating to her that she needs to trust, but I think in a lot of ways he didn't trust her, and he needed to have trust as well in the process, but he didn't. Not as much as he needed to force him or to enable him to be committed to their relationship. So I could go on and on and on about the intricacies of their relationship, but we ain't got that kind of time. So
I do wanna comment on the one thing you just said, and I think the theme of a lot of these relationships can kind of be summed up in this: no person is enough for you to marry, right? You have to make the choice in and of yourself to want to and to live up to the ideals that you espouse in your vows. But no person is going to make you feel that way. And even if they can in the moment, I guarantee you that that moment ends, right? And I think a lot of those relationships were either undermined or ended abruptly because people were like, well, you aren't enough. When the problem is, as Clay said, I think the most important part of that is, am I ready? And he didn't feel like he was ready. And if he didn't feel like he was ready, then no one should ever tell him to go ahead and do it, right?
And he shouldn't.
Then don't do it. So I think for a lot of them, they felt like the other person wasn't enough. And honestly, in the format that their relationship was presented, it's a bit weird if the person is enough. You honestly do not know them that well. So it's a bit weird if you're like, yes, to everything, you are amazing and perfect to me. I'm not saying that that can't be true, but it's a bit odd.
Especially when your attention is split. So if you're dating multiple people and you haven't narrowed it down from the very, I don't know, by day 1, day 2, day 3, you haven't narrowed it down to just one person that you're dating, you're spreading yourself so thin, you don't remember who you have said what to, and you haven't learned everything that you needed to learn. And you, like I said to you in the last one, I'm still learning things about my husband. And like you said, like, was my husband enough in a sense of, I don't think I'm enough for my husband, to be honest. Do I think I'm enough for myself as a person? Yes. Do I think that I bring a lot of things to the table? Yes. Do I think that we make a good fit? And when you think about our characteristics, our goals, our values, things that, like, yes. I think that when we make a choice to get married to someone, we are making a choice. It's not because that person chosen is at 100%.
Right.
Because that doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist. And for any of you that are searching for perfection, that's why you are single. Have fun. Enjoy the variety. That's cool. No one's knocking it. If that's what you enjoy, then that's what you enjoy. Do it. Or if you're in a relationship with someone who enjoys you still having a variety, then do that too. But marriage is a choice. And I know you probably might disagree with me on this. Love is a choice as well.
Oh, 100%.
Oh, you agree?
100%.
Okay. To me, like, all these things are choices that we're making. And every day that you're in a marriage, you're continuing to make a choice to be in that relationship despite all other things that may not be at 100%.
Yes. 100% agree.
There are things today, if God would be like, what do you want to change in your husband? I'm like, how much time do you have, God? Let's see.
Right.
Like, You know what I'm
No,
saying?
you got more receipts now than you did when you were getting
That I
married.
did, but right, I got more like, okay, well, God, can we tweak this a little bit? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm sure if God asked him questions about me, there are things about me that he would like to change as well. We don't present ourselves as perfect human beings, and we can't expect and anticipate our marriage or our relationship to just be one of perfection. That's just not real life. It's not real life. We need to stop it. I'm not saying that this shouldn't allow 1,000 red flags into your relationship. I'm not saying that. Don't like fall off the cliff with what it is I'm saying about relationships not meaning 100. But it needs to be something where you feel safe. You feel safe in the relationship, financially, emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise. Do you feel safe? And is there potential for growth, for continued growth in the relationship? If the answers are yes, okay, that's the best foundation you can go off of. That's the best foundation that you can go off of. Anyhow, thinking about the reunion, do you feel like Chelsea and Trevor could end up connecting? And then why or why not?
I think so. I think she's going to immediately run to him. Whether they connect or not is really a function of if he feels that she's rebounding to him or if he feels a genuine connection. Because I think she said enough when they had their conversation where she doubled down on her choice and didn't leave the door open for him, right? That he may be like, well, now that he said no, you can't come back to me. Which honestly, I hope he does say.
Me too.
But also, I do think that there's potential for a relationship there. It just needs to happen under the right circumstances.
Right. Agreed. So since we're on this path of what we can expect from the upcoming reunion, do you feel like Jimmy and Jessica would end up dating?
Oh yeah. I think he's going after her. I think Jessica will feel validated. And she wants that. I don't know that it will last, but because I definitely think there are some issues there. But I think that she will definitely engage in it because he's done enough to kind of cut off that relationship with Chelsea, and she can be like, see, you should have chosen me in the first place, and I feel good because I was proven right. So I do think they will be in some way seeing each other.
Okay. So I guess in that regard, do you feel like Kenneth and Brittany, do you feel like they would have revisited their relationship and come back together or sort things out? Are you expecting them to still be disconnected at the reunion?
I think so.
Yeah, me too.
I think they're still going to be disconnected. I think he just decided he was done. It doesn't seem like Brittany would necessarily, I don't know how she took him kind of ending things there. They didn't really show her thoughts on it. It just kind of ended. So I don't know where she stands, and she may have decided, if you don't want to put the effort in, then maybe it's not worth it. Right. He definitely seems like he was looking for an excuse to get out of it. So I don't know that he would have cycled back.
Okay. And of course, I have to ask you about Eddie and Clay, seeing that he said no at the altar. The way that they kind of reconnected at the end, once he said no and the wedding ceremony had wrapped up, guests had gone home, it seemed like he was still interested in having a relationship with her, but she pretty much was saying, I'm done. I am not going into this. Like, you made a fool of me. You wasted my time. You never wanted me. But Bob, all the other things that we tell ourselves when we aren't chosen in the time frame that we desire to be chosen. Do you feel like she would have given him a chance and they would end up dating again?
Not easily. It is possible, but I think she would have made him work really hard. I understand where she's coming from. He mishandled the situation. Fear in the moment is not enough of an answer, right? It's not enough of an answer. I do think he would try, but I'm not really sure if he's going to try hard enough, to really keep her. He seemed to think that he was saying no to the timeline and not no to her, but those things weren't connected in her mind. I mean, rather, they were connected in her mind. You couldn't have one and not the other. So I think he ruined his chances. I don't think he's committed enough to stick with her long enough and be persistent enough to earn another chance.
So final outcome situation for the reunion. Do you feel like Jeremy and Sarah Ann dated and tried to figure something out?
I think so.
I agree.
That's what she was looking for.
Yeah. I think that was one of the purposes, and the way that she showed up to the barbecue, it was her purpose to seek him out. And even when Sarah Ann was having a conversation with AD, and AD was just like, why would you be so disrespectful to his engagement, knowing that this man was engaged? Like, you had a conversation with him, but yet it was too much of a conversation, and to the point of disrespect for him, disrespect to his engagement, and then disrespect to you as a woman. I think essentially was what AD was trying to say. And Sarah Ann was pretty much like, I don't need to give you my rationale for why I made the decisions that I made. He came to me, he told me that he wasn't interested in pursuing his wife anymore. And I told him that I was still interested in pursuing him. It is essentially what she said. And AD was like, and I know in her head, she was like, oh, you a thought for doing that. Like, you home wrecking the situation before they had an opportunity to thoroughly dissolve their engagement. And I wonder if, to be honest, I wonder if Jeremy would have been so quick to dissolve his marriage if Sarah Ann had not been so available.
But I think to echo a point you said earlier, why would you want that, right? I know there's a lot, at least from the perspective, because the only real conversation they had addressing that was AD talking to Sarah Ann, and I disagree with AD's perspective. I mean, personally, my opinion is that a person cannot disrespect someone else's relationship. Only the people in the relationship can disrespect it, right? So had he been committed or even just concerned about respecting the relationship, he could have put up boundaries. Yeah. And he didn't, right? So that means that their relationship was not as secure as Laura would have wanted it to be, right? And I don't think that's Sarah Ann's fault. I think she's right. She needed to get things off her chest. She didn't get a chance to say what she wanted to say. And so she could be like, hey, this is how I feel, A lot of people have stories of, people dropping messages in their email, on their inbox, their text messages the night before they get married. People are either the person getting married or someone messaging them and saying all this stuff. And people need to get things off their chest so they can, move on. And she did that. And he was like, yo, what's up? So it's really on him. I think that's fully on him and not on her.
I agree. Anything else you want to add in like 2 minutes before we end this review?
No, I think that's a perfect note to end it on.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see how this reunion goes and see if our theories come to fruition. We shall see.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how the reunion goes.
All right. Well, take care and have a good one.
You too. Thanks for watching.
Thanks. I'm wearing black and you wearing white.
Oh, true. Didn't even realize that. I'm like glowing.
That's because you have that black backdrop. And then you wear
we love a black
one. Like an angel. Little do they know. Little do they know.
This is an accurate representation.
What is an accurate representation?
Angel me.
Okay, all right.